Ready?
Sorry.
Take a deep breath.
Don't need Carissa. See my note from Amy here.
We're going to call to order Tuesday, June the 6th, 2023, the 4 o'clock meeting beginning at 4:03. Make a note of that, Stroud. All right. Good evening. Hope everyone's doing well today. Manager Mull, do we have any adjustments to our agenda this evening?
No, ma'am, no adjustments.
Fine. And at the 6 o'clock hour, we will be presenting special recognition and retirement for Norma Rife. And we do not have any appointments before the board this evening, and we do have a busy public hearing section this evening as well at 6 o'clock. Do we need anything from Matthew Todd before we move into the administrative matters concerning public hearings? Any questions for that? Nothing on that?
Nope.
Okay. Well, let's begin the administrative matters. Please, Manager Mull.
Okay, perfect, thank you. The first item is a request from Planning and Development to consider calling for a public hearing on June the 20th, 2023 at 6 o'clock p.m. in regard to the request from Howard Bryan to release zoning and subdivision jurisdiction to the town of Troutman. Mr. Matthew Todd is here to make this presentation to the board. He can give you a little bit more information, but again, this is just a call for a public hearing.
Okay.
Yeah, this one's pretty straightforward. It's south of exit 42, several parcels being put together, pretty much surrounded by Troutman, either city limits or their ETJ already. And it is, from what we're hearing, proposed for commercial, retail type use, not residential. Just for the call.
Any questions?
I heard we was getting a new tractor supply in Troutman. Is that, you know anything about that?
I do not. I've heard that same thing.
Got that from Tractor Supply that they were building one there. Saved me a trip from going to Statesville.
Better than houses, isn't it?
You got that right.
Oh, I've got a lively group this evening. Do we have a consent on our first item on administrative matters?
Consent.
Mr. Todd also has the next item, and that's a request from Planning and Development to consider calling for a public hearing on June the 20th, 2023 at 6 o'clock p.m. in regard to a text amendment to the Land Development Code.
This one we've been dealing with for a while, but it's a text amendment dealing with billboards. Currently, our ordinance regulates billboards based off if they're static or a digital billboard. What we decided to do is try to consolidate that into one set of regulations, really treat them the same. We are limiting the roads that those billboards can go on. Currently, really what you're looking for is the correct zoning, and they could be built on almost any road. But what's been proposed is that they'd be allowed on interstates and US and NC routes only, not your secondary road system. There's a few other clarifications in the code with that, and again, this is just for the call as well.
And it also specified distance between sign to sign in between.
Yes, so there's separations between the signs. That was already in there. The one thing that was not in there was a setback from a property line.
Okay.
So we did add that into there. I mean, it's 15 feet. And then there's setbacks from residential properties that was already in there.
So we did not have a setback before.
From a property line, we didn't.
And then one of the questions, I got a couple calls this week on some of this stuff. It's, one was, a guy asked me, he owns the billboard, he's a billboard company, and he needs to rebuild two, and he wanted to know, can he rebuild them right, go right behind it, rebuild and leave this one up, and then take it down?
Yes, so there's a section in here to address that. So some of that would depend if they're non-conforming signs, like if they don't meet the current code, but they could replace those as well. If they meet all the requirements, then they would just apply for new permits. But if for some reason they're considered a non-conforming sign, they still could replace it with the same type of sign, size, et cetera.
What would make it non-conforming if it's allowed on that site? What's some of the examples of non-conforming?
That they don't meet the separation setback. I mean, you got a lot of billboards that have been around a long time that would predate the zoning requirements that have a lot of age on them. So that's typically what you're going to see. It could be that the zoning doesn't allow them wherever they're sitting, again, because they're essentially legal non-conforming signs. They were there before the requirements came into play.
So they're only allowed to repair them instead of take them down and put them back up for safety reasons?
Yeah, if they don't meet the requirements. They can replace them again with the same size and same type of sign.
I've got one on my, it's against my property, and it's not on my property, but it's online, and then they added the catwalk, and it's on my property. Is that okay? Oh, and it's 40 feet in the air.
And it hangs like across the property line?
It crosses the property line in the air.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem,
Yeah.
I'm just asking for.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with the current code, it probably not anything, but the 15-foot setback would come into play on one like
That's
that.
the same guy that's talking about moving over 2 feet and rebuilding it, but if there's 15 foot, then that's gonna make, he'd have to go with a new setback, right,
Unless he replaced it just as it is.
as it is.
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I would ask that you have that person contact Matthew
no,
directly
no,
so
he's
that
gotta get
he's
a
not
permit.
giving you advice
Yeah, he's gotta get a
that
permit,
may or may not be correct,
right?
depending on all the circumstances.
Yeah, we're not fighting or anything, he just asked me my opinion. I'm good. She's always trying to keep me out of jail.
All right, any further questions?
Keep you out of jail.
Thank you for working on this issue. Do we have a consent?
Consent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item is a request from Emergency Communications for approval of a First Amendment to the lease agreement with Cool Springs Volunteer Fire Department, and Mr. Jamie Barrier is here to make this presentation to the board.
Commissioners, Madam Chair and the manager, we're here tonight to ask for your approval for the Viper Tower site located in the Cool Springs Volunteer Fire Department Station 2 on Fifth Creek Road. I have two also.
There are two different ones. One is for the Harmony Volunteer Fire Department and Olin Community Center, which is the next item on the agenda, but they're basically the exact same leases. So if you want to go ahead and present them together, and then they'll have to approve them separately, but you can cover
The
them.
second one is, like I said, is for the Harmony Volunteer Fire Department on Olin Loop. And it's the Harmony, the Olin community also is tied into that. The only difference is the Harmony location will be an annual cost of $1,800 for utilities, because we are currently hooked into their
there's a difference
utilities
there.
now.
Lisa was getting ready to say.
That's the only difference.
I was going to note there are some differences between the two and how they're being presented to you, because Cool Springs had already approved their agreement and signed it. So what you have in your agenda packet is an amendment. So you're approving both the contract and that amendment to it. And the amendment was to address some of the issues with the ARPA funds being used. And then Harmony site, they were already leasing, or some would consider it a sublease, because there's a relationship between Olin and Harmony. And so there's some differences as far as that's concerned, but the basic terms and concepts are the same.
So it's okay if we do them both at the same time?
It's fine if you do them at the same time, and then I would also just note, if you don't have a copy of the Cool Springs one, that there were some clarifications that needed to be made as far as the confidentiality. That was watermarked on it, and I think that draft was watermarked on Harmony. They're not, the agreements are not confidential, and then that the exhibits, if you would, or if staff could confirm that the exhibits will be clarified so that you can.
Amy added to our agenda.
Yeah, she added the lease agreement to us.
I still don't have the one without the confidential.
The watermark.
Watermark. So just,
And
it needs to be clear that it's not a confidential, that agreement is not confidential under public records law.
And a clear map.
Right.
And a clear map, correct.
The amendment on the ARPA funding.
It was just stating the terms, the language we have to have if we use ARP
ARPA
funds.
funding for that
Yes,
project. Okay.
yes, just making sure, because the Harmony lease was one that we've had for years. And since we're making improvements for the Viper simulcast project and we're using ARP funds, we had to update and put that necessary language in there that's a requirement for the ARP funds.
I don't think we should charge any extra for those, but
Okay. Any further comments or questions? Noting that there's two separate agreements However, I would accept a consent for item 8.3. Do we have a consent?
Consent,
Consent?
And do we have a consent for item 8.4?
consent.
Consent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Valdez, for the clarification on
Keeping
that
you out
as
of jail,
well.
too.
Hey, Jamie.
Thank you.
And I will just say that we have one more that we're working on for one additional tower on the southern end that should be coming to you shortly, but that will be all of the tower locations for the Viper simulcast project, and the project's moving along well, so we're moving forward with that.
Good deal.
The next item is a request from the Finance Department for approval of Budget Amendment Number 41 to recognize and appropriate insurance claim proceeds, and Ms. Deb Cheek is here to make this presentation to the board.
Hello there.
Hey, Deb.
Once a year, we come to you and appropriate insurance proceeds that we have received throughout the year, and those proceeds go back to the department's lines from which they had loss. So I'm asking for $194,000 to be appropriated in the general fund, $6,634 in ICATs, and $4,393 in solid waste.
Okay, any questions? Have a consent?
Consent.
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you. The next item is a request from administration for approval of a memorandum of agreement with the North Carolina State University for cooperative extension employees. Ms. Susan Robertson is here to make this presentation to the board.
Good afternoon. Since well before I came to work for the county in 1985, Iredell County had a relationship with NC State University for our cooperative extension staff. Currently, let's see, 6 of the 8 staff members we share cost with NC State University, and in your package, it shows the amount that we pay for each of those salaries. The range, the average is about 55% for salaries and benefits we pay, and the range is from 50 to 67%. It depends on the position. In addition, the county has 2 100% county employees, and those were added for 4-H and then for in-office assistance. Because our programs are so robust. We have so many schools and 4-H's in every school, and it takes 3 people to do that job. The relationship has been a very good one, and we want to continue that relationship. We have not updated our agreement since 2007, and they are operating with much different agreements, or slightly different agreements at this time. The main change in this one is the fact that the way this works is NC State pays them. They are employees of NC State. And then they draft our bank account for our share of their salaries. In the old agreement, there was nothing stated that allowed the county to do anything other than the percentage share. But there have been times when the state has done nothing for cooperative extension employees. And at one time, there was a 3% across or salary scale adjustment. NC State did nothing, but the board felt like our employees that work here in Iredell County deserved that, so it was upped a little bit. And then when we did the COVID bonus a couple years ago, we did that for our cooperative extension family as well. And the state didn't share in that. And what this agreement does is that they did it for us, even though our agreement at the time didn't include that in it, and that's the main change in this one.
Well, they're NC State employees, not state employees.
That's correct. They're employees of the university.
So they only get raises, I think Brad and I talked, maybe you were going to ask that. They get raises based on what NC State gives them.
That's
for
correct.
their portion.
That's correct.
And we were,
Maybe.
basically, and we were locked,
Yeah.
and we were locked to do what they did. If they gave 3%, we gave 3% or something. Am I correct, Susan?
Well, what we did was, yes, we would match it.
Right. Okay.
But there have been times where they didn't do anything because when it gets to the university, it starts in the university system, it starts at the top. And sometimes it trickles down and cooperative extension doesn't get anything.
Yes, ma'am.
So.
Under the new, you're probably going there, shut up.
No, go
Under
ahead.
the new agreement, do we have the flexibility to help our employees by our portion based upon what we're doing for the rest of the county employees and see them, do we have that authority?
Yes. Which they allowed us to do it before.
So that had.
For those two, yeah, they allowed us to, but our agreement didn't state it.
They might
because-
be NC State employees, but they're ours. They belong to our county.
That's where they're here, and they're here to make lives better. As a former library director said about the public library back around 1990, you know, cooperative extension is here from conception to resurrection, just like the public library is. They help all ages and our entire community.
So in the past, we've had the ability, but it's not been in our agreement to do so. Have we in the past, has the board in the past given the portion to those folks the same as we did the rest of our employees?
Only those two times.
So should we,
There have been times where NC State may have done something less than the county, and we matched NC State.
Okay, so, and correct me if I'm wrong, Manager Mole, our part-time people, part-time employees, whatever our cost of living, even to our part-time folks, goes up accordingly as well?
Only our permanent part-time. So we do have temporary seasonal part-times that do not, but if we have permanent part-time positions, yes, they do receive.
So, I mean, so in my opinion, we're looking at a permanent, full-time, part-time, you know, with the way it is. So I would like for us as a board to entertain that the portion that we're paying be increased by the same we increase our, and we're getting ready to go in our budget, and I'd like for half of this year is for us to increase their salary, if it's 55%, that 55% match what the county gets for those employees. And I don't know if we got to vote on that every year, or if we can set that as a standard moving forward. But I think we're basically, we've been, it was something that had to be chose to done, and if it got forgot, because maybe that MOU's not had to be brought up, I want to make sure that we're taking care of these folks. You know, last Monday or Tuesday, last Tuesday, I had the opportunity to go to the Ag Volunteer Dinner. That was awesome. You've got it going on, Nancy. There was, did you do a head count? 150?
Well, it was a little over 100, I guess.
You know, and I will tell you, it was a magnificent event. It was a great meal provided by Sharps. But I will tell you, you could, the connection to our ag staff and to our force multipliers, our volunteers, was phenomenal. And that you could feel that emotion. You could feel that connection. And we need to take care of your staff. And so I'd like to.
so when you get a raise from NC State, that's just on the portion that they're paying?
Yes, sir.
So basically, we would be matching that, saying that we're going to give on our portion that we pay, or full-time people, the same as any other county employees getting that year.
On your portion.
Okay.
I mean, yes, on the county portion.
What we need to do to make that happen, Beth?
I think the contract
address that
will
change?
incorporate that and give us that
Yeah.
flexibility.
That new
It
contract
allows,
gives us that.
it allows us to do
It
that.
allows us to do it, but it doesn't make us. So is there something that we can do where this, we don't have to come back and address this each year? Because if they're not presenting, I don't want it to be where you get forgot. from year to year. Does that make sense?
Right.
That does make sense, and I'm not going to be here forever, so it could be fine.
Hold on.
Yeah, but I still think you have to come back every year because anything we make is just good for this board. It's not for.
Yeah, you can't bind
You
another
just
board.
include that in the budget process each
Yeah,
year.
It needs to be done every
That's,
year.
we can, as long as we're here, we can
Right.
include it in
Exactly.
there.
Include that in the
Suppose
budget
we get
process.
that put in
Time now to get that implemented?
for this
When-
budget.
Yes, I would say, that's what I
Yes.
want to make sure. Okay, so,
There'll be enough lap salaries and whatever.
Yeah, we can.
Perfect.
We can
Yep.
do that.
All right. Thank you very much.
thank you for
Thank you.
bringing that up as well, too.
Our agriculture department is very.
Okay.
Very important to us.
Thank you.
I would just like to say that since I've been here in 2012, I really, really appreciate the collaboration and the partnerships that we have had with the administrative staff, all departments in Iredell County working closely together, and with your support for cooperative extension and moving things forward in Iredell County. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Say too, you know, Nancy's always, as much as possible, within reason, bends over backwards to let the public use that facility or rent it or whatever, but every time they've ever gone to that facility, it's clean, it's neat, you know, and people compliment that, you know, so I wanted to say y'all are doing a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, do we have a consent?
Consent.
Thank you, and thank you for the discussion on that, making that happen as well. All right, Manager Mull, that takes us to the county construction project information.
Yes, ma'am. And as we normally do each month, we just include this in your packet for informational purposes only, but if you have any questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any of those.
Were we not gonna go over these one by one?
We can if you want to. We absolutely can.
Salibi thought he was.
Fire
off
when
the
ready.
Jennings Park, where we at on the bids on it?
We have not bid that out yet, so we are, I think we will bid that out towards the end of this month. We're getting ready to go through the pre-qualification part, and don't quote me on that date, but I'm pretty sure it's towards the end of the month that we'll do bids.
All right, any further questions on construction?
We're moving right along, and this area is looking great.
Is.
It's great to have daylight.
You have no idea.
So,
So yes, the windows are in. They're finishing the repointing of the brick and some of the finish work on the exterior wood frames of the windows, and then working on the portico. Now, if you'll look at the columns, you can see where they're chipping away years and years and years of paint to go back and restore those columns. So it's been a very interesting process. It's been a very loud and painstaking process. But the company that we have doing the work is doing a great job.
to have been someone who walked into this building every day for 20 years, it is, very nice to see, it be respected and cared for as it deserves. But I will tell you, as Beth said, the noisy, the jackhammers and everything, but at least this time it's, over the years, it's being done right. And I do tell you, and Melissa and I have had the little fun, we do kind of have exception with you putting the drunk glass in that one right there.
It's original. It's
the
original glass.
glass.
It is
It's
the
a-
original glass.
And it has the
Number them
wave in it,
and-
you look and
Yes.
you're not sure if you've been drinking or not, so.
And I will tell you, the majority of the windows do have the original glass. There were only a few that over the years had broken and had to be replaced and does not have the original glass. But if you can tell which ones are the original, and the majority of them are still the original glass, which speaks volumes, which is why we had to remove the windows, send it off to be restored and repaired and bring it back, because they are the original windows with the original glass.
And someone had the job of numbering them and coordinating them and getting
They
them.
did. If you'll look, there's painter's tape on all of, well, I think we've pulled them off these, but there were painter's tape on all of the windows, which had them numbered. So to make sure they went back in the exact same spot where they were removed.
I did tell David Saleeby I was gonna go around and move those numbers.
He probably had a heart attack when you said that. That has been a very tedious process, trying to make sure because You want to say all of them are the same, but they're not.
No.
They just don't, if you don't put them back where they came from, they don't fit
But it's
exactly
look-
right.
It's looking great.
It is. They're doing a good job.
All right, that takes us to 8.8. Do we want any discussion now, or shall we just pull it out and do it at 6 o'clock?
Well, and that was what I was going to reference. This is the budget ordinance, so really not something that we can address now because we need to go through the budget public hearing first. I do have kind of a quick recap that I'll do at the 6 o'clock, and if you want me to do it now, I can certainly do it now as well. But just a quick recap of everything that's included in the budget. Just kind of the larger items. I'm going to do that recap, and Ms. Cheek is going to go through and list some of the specific items that need to be in the record. We can go through the public hearing, and then if the board has any comments, and then there at the end, we will need to read the budget ordinance, the facets of the budget ordinance into the record. So we'll.
At the close of the public hearing.
Yes, at the close of the public hearing, and Ms. Cheek will do that as well to make sure that we have everything in the record that's necessary and required.
Okay.
I don't see any reason to make her have to read it.
No, like I said, I'm good with waiting till the
Yeah.
6 o'clock. Y'all good with 6 o'clock on that one as well? Okay.
Can't do it now.
We wait with bated breath.
And then it takes us to, and I'll ask this of you as well, to, when you notice on the agenda, there's a listing of the boards and announcements and opportunities for folks to serve. And there's a lot of them. And I would just like for you to add at the 6 o'clock as well. The reason for that is because there's, like, it's on a cycle.
It is on a cycle. It seemed like we were doing this every time we turned around, and so what we did 2 years ago, I think, maybe even 3, time flies when you're having fun, but we try to do it twice a year. We try to do it we do the announcements in June with the appointments in July, and then we do it at the end of the year as well. The only exception to that are those where we have individuals that maybe have resigned or had to step down for various reasons, and we have to replace those members. So we may have a few sprinkled in here and there due to people that could no longer serve, and we have to do that on an off cycle to finish that unexpired term. But so we do have a long list that's there, and that's just kind of in keeping with our rotation.
And I was going to say, if you'll just reiterate that at the 6 o'clock hour, and then
Absolutely.
also state that it's opportunity to serve. You can find that on the website too. And I believe, Amy, you've had to mail out copies too for folks before, haven't you? Okay, so that opportunity is there as
That's something I
well.
wanted to talk to y'all about on this. We need to have Amy also look at these positions and either people that are re-upped or people that apply. You know, we really need to look at this hard. We've been looking at geographically, but we need to look at attendance. We need to look at all of those things. And I think, you know, some of these boards, I've been asked to consider having a policy to where if somebody misses a certain number of meetings, and especially if it impacts their voting ability without alternates, we need to look at the ability to, in real time, to remove them and add somebody there. People could have all kind of
Right,
health
so
issues, something.
Right, factoring in.
But I'm saying also on our Board of Adjustment, I mean, not our Board of Adjustment, but our Statesville, Troutman, Mooresville, ETJ appointments. We need to consider, because, you know, those are supposed to be people that represent our Dale County citizens in the ETJ. Right now, we're getting recommendations from the towns. If we pick somebody other than that, it just creates animosity between this board and their board, potentially. But we need to make sure we're looking at these ETJ appointments, because ETJ is a very hostile word right now in this county with the growth.
Yes.
And we need to make sure that we have active ETJ members on these boards that have an understanding of what our expectations are. And I think I'd like to require and ask our ETJ appointees to make sure they're reporting to Amy to get to us or Beth, anything coming up on these ETJs that are gonna come to us for it. I mean, what do y'all, I mean, I'm just saying.
No.
Is there, in that situation, is there where we can have a requirement that for that person representing us on those board that we get to a point that they live in an ETJ zone?
That's
That's a requirement now.
That is a requirement.
That's a requirement that they live
Okay.
in the ETJ.
But what Commissioner Halp is referring to is for example, the Statesville, there's a Statesville Board of Adjustment, ETJ, one announcement. There's a Statesville Planning Board, and there's a Troutman Planning Board, ETJ announcement. So typically what happens is those, like, for example, Troutman Planning Board, Statesville Planning Board, and Statesville Board of Adjustment, they vet those and then make a recommendation back to us. So I think what he's recommending is we vet those and make a recommendation to them. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, it's not a recommendation. We're appointing them to that board.
We are appointing them, but we're appointing or approving their recommendation regarding the ETJ representative. Is that something,
That's my point is in some cases, I know in particular Mooresville, they made a recommendation and we went with someone else.
correct?
So what I'm saying is, they can still make a recommendation, but I want there potentially to be no expectation that that's an automatic appointment.
Okay, I support that 100%.
Yeah, and
Because
then-
if we've got somebody that maybe they don't care for, but that's
Well, they may
active
not
person.
care for it because
Exactly.
they question things that's in the ETJ that's not advantageous to the citizens in the ETJ. We need to know the reason they
Absolutely,
don't
and-
support somebody.
And if you'll recall, when we, specifically with that one, we held that appointment until we got all the applications for that ETJ representation, and we actually ended up going with someone other than who they had recommended. So I think we've done that. It's been a little bit of a difficult process, but I think we've communicated back to the clerks of those various boards the process and procedure, that it needs to be on the county application because it is a county appointment on that board. It needs to be on the county applications. And I think that Ms. Anderson has done a great job communicating back to all of those clerks regarding the process specifically for those appointments.
I believe now would be a time to reiterate that as well, that it's on the agenda, it's upcoming, the application will be coming in as well, too. So Amy, if you'll just follow up that and we need to have see the applications in ahead of time, not
Right.
just like the night of or anything, too. That way we can
Right.
fully vet and go through, see the
It's
qualifications.
not just a rubber stamp because based on what the municipality wants
Right.
us to do.
And again, it's
Okay.
like, and a lot of times we have the assumption that just because someone served before, that they're the most qualified candidate. That needs to be looked at as well, of who is, by various factors,
Right.
would be the most qualified for that.
Yeah,
for each of- on that
and one of the things we had talked about before is specifically attendance and participation. That's important if somebody's going to be
'Cause you can't
reappointed.
miss, right.
You certainly want to make sure that you're reappointing someone that's coming to the meetings, that's participating, that's, that's doing that. And
Are any
I
of these
think Ms.
term
Anderson's
lim-
going to start.
Does any of these have term limits? Wasn't there?
Some of them do, and I can't go through the list right now off the top of my head.
Amy will
and tell you
tell us.
which
I
ones.
just wanted them to, some of them have term limits.
Some of them
unless-
do,
yeah.
yes.
And then also with being that the ETJ is such a delicate topic, the goal, is there a mission statement, if you will, or responsibility of the person that goes into that seat? Do they have an understanding of what is expected of them for that seat? Are they there to gather information, give input, or is there a
I mean,
description of that seat?
Their role and responsibility is to serve those other individuals that are located in that ETJ.
So representing the
and
people.
representing their interest in any of those zoning or planning matters.
So if the folks that are living in there reach out to someone, that would be their voice?
Correct, yes, that would be their representative. That would be the person that they go to and talk to represent their interests, yes.
So that's
Speak
critical.
on their behalf.
What happens if ETJ moves into city limits, gets annexed into city limits? Does that person still serve on that board, or would there be somebody for
That's
that
interesting.
I
ETJ?
think we'd need to reappoint then if that person moves in.
Yeah, but if
because-
it's annexed, it's not the ETJ
Interesting
anymore.
thought.
Right.
Correct,
Yeah.
that is
So
correct.
you don't need
Is there
that.
anything in our policy that talks about that?
But it's representing all areas of ETJ throughout the whole county, correct?
No, it's
No,
just in
just-
that municipalities or towns.
Well, no, that's what I'm saying, but isn't there different, so if a particular area of the so let's say with Statesville, a particular area gets annexed. Not all ETJ areas would get annexed at one time.
Correct. I think what he's saying is what happens if that ETJ representative, if their property is annexed and
Right,
they're no
exactly.
longer in the ETJ.
Then we need to reappoint someone that's in, then they'd need to step down and we'd need to reappoint
That's a
someone.
Ms. Valdez question.
They would need to be removed or stepped down because they would no longer be qualified
Okay.
for that position.
Same as if they moved from, so let's just say, a mile down the road. And
Yeah,
it,
they're outside the ETJ.
and they got out of the ETJ, so they need to resign.
If they were no longer in the ETJ, they would need to resign or be removed.
Okay, good.
Good point. Thank you for that.
And we have had members resign because they did move and they no longer represented the area that they were appointed to represent. We've had that happen before.
Can we look at an attendance policy possibly for all of our people?
For all of our reappointments.
Do we have that currently, an
We
attendance
can,
policy?
we can check with those respective boards and check attendance for anybody that is requesting to be reappointed. We can,
But I
I
think,
gathered that information about 3 months ago, and I can get it updated
okay.
for you all.
Yeah, because I'm going to say, because someone may feel like 2 absences is fine, and somebody else may say 1 is fine. So I didn't know if we had a uniform that would be applicable for all or not. So at this point, we don't, right? Okay. But that's,
We will.
That's right.
so Ms. Valdez, if you'll make a note of that comment as well for attendance, how we could craft that,
For all the boards.
or how would we include that in?
Well, I think you need to keep in mind that different boards are established in different ways. So the planning board and the board of adjustment are established through your land development code, and the criteria for those positions are there.
Board of Health.
Advisory, I mean, different ones are crafted or established through different mechanisms.
Okay.
So it may not be the same across the board,
so
pun intended.
yeah, I mean, for example, there are various bylaws that govern some of these entities, and those bylaws stipulate the percentage of meetings that they must attend to be
Okay,
an active member, things
percentage
like
might
that. Yeah, so each one's going to have a different set of rules based on their governing document, like their bylaws. Board of Health has different requirements than the planning board would, that the Animal Grievance Committee would, because they all are set up by different bylaws, rules, procedures.
I think it may be more that you make sure that each of the boards has that included in their bylaws or their rules, that they have an attendance requirement.
That sounds like a job for the chair lady.
Yes.
Read through each ordinance, looking for attendance.
Find with a fine.
With a fine-tooth comb, make sure, and we would like you to make us all a copy, so, and highlight it.
And as long as you got it back by 6 o'clock, we'll be all right.
The good news is you have a little bit more time because we're just announcing these vacancies. You're not making any appointments
All
this
right, we'll
evening.
let
So
her
you have a little time.
Slide to the next meeting.
The next meeting, you got to do the next meeting.
I bought you 2 weeks.
The manager saved you.
I hope you didn't have any vacations planned or anything.
Oh, of course not.
Good.
It's a reading material, that's right, reading material.
Get her off the tractor.
Well, thank you for that. We've covered a lot. And if you'll just summarize our thoughts, if you will, we don't have to redo all this at 6 o'clock as well, but if you will,
Yes.
just, we had some really good talking points there, and I think each commissioner has conveyed various points, if we can put that all together for 6.
Okay.
All right, as we move down the agenda, it looks like we have no appointments currently, but that is for the future. And any unfinished business? I take that as a no. Commissioner, I'm sorry, we have no public comment period this meeting. Commissioner updates. Currently, are we anyone at the 4 o'clock hour, or are we doing?
Let's see.
Say it's the 6 o'clock.
I'll make you wait.
Making me wait. Any new business? Wow, we're just going to take it right down to the county manager's report. Please, Manager Mull, for a preview.
It is just incredibly brief, but just to let everyone know that I've been going with Chair Nieder and speaking to school groups, and I've gone and spoke to a couple of other civic organizations and nonprofit organizations, and the feedback has been great as far as going out and speaking to those groups and sharing, what does the county do? It's been surprising to a lot of people to realize the services that we provide. It's been, it never fails at some of the some of the high school classes that we talked to, they had no idea all the different services that we provide. So that's been really good.
Job opportunities.
And
I have-
job opportunities.
And I have to give you a shout out. So we were at a high school in a class, and manager will ask how many other were there. Of course, their interests, their job plans, their future plans. By the time we were wrapping it up, she was recruiting one of the young ladies for the apprentice program with EMS.
And I got one for solid waste,
And
too.
solid waste too, so. And that's what it is. Being face-to-face and sharing the opportunities makes it real.
It does.
really does.
And, and that's one of the things that the apprentice program, thank you to the board for giving us permission to start that apprentice program. It is going really well. Our HR department is participating in a job fair right now with some of our high schools. And the apprentice program, we're getting a lot of interest in the apprentice program. And it's really a great opportunity for some of our youth that are going to go into the workforce. Why would they not come and work here? We have great opportunities for them. So thank you to the board for that support and for allowing us to create that program to try to fill some of these vacancies and keep our best and brightest here in our county. They're getting a great education here. We want them to contribute here too and work here and live here. And, that accomplishes our entire mission, vision, and goals. So, and it's working. And I just want to commend you for that and let you know that it is working. And we do have interest. And I never miss an opportunity to try to talk to some of our seniors and say, hey, are you aware of the job opportunities we have here in Iredell County? So, and I actually ended up getting 3 that day.
That's fantastic.
3 applications for apprentice program, so I was
Like
really
we need to
excited.
go visit some more seniors.
We need to go see some more seniors, absolutely.
Excellent. Anything further? All right, then I would like a motion, please, to go into closed session for economic development and property acquisition. And thank you, motion by Commissioner Halp. We all in favor? We're going into closed session.